We got a major golf championship coming up. I don't know if we're going to talk. We got to work in a little bit of golf, but here he is, the man himself, Cover 3 podcast moderator, CBS Sports.com's Chip Patterson. Sir, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm ready to talk golf.
I know.
If you want to talk golf,
I do.
Today, yeah, we got to finalize the card by about 3 p.m. As long as we're locked in by 3 p.m., I'll feel good about it.
I have not done a deep dive on some of the underlying contenders. I'd probably stay a little surface level for me on that one.
Nikolai Højgaard, top Danish, plus 130. How does Nikolai Højgaard, top Dane sound?
Dane? How many?
Yeah.
There's not that many Danes. Is Torbjørn Olesen in the field? Is what the other Højgaard? Is Højgaard's brother?
Yeah. That's the competition, basically. Yeah, I was looking at that, and then Taylor Pendrith versus Corey Connors for top Canadian.
Top Canadian. Okay.
I haven't decided which way I'm going to land on that one, but going into a Sunday sweating the top nationality is a fun spot to be as a golf fan.
That's hysterical. All right, let's start with the ACC spring meetings, because I just want to start. Let me start with the funny first. That the Atlantic Coast Conference, mad that they had lost the narrative, the public narrative about men's basketball. Because and I'm not suggesting that they should have had more teams in. I'm not making that argument, even if they should. But that they lost the narrative because the likes of Joe Lunardi tried to oversimplify, and it wasn't just him, by buying into the quad denotion of games.
Right.
That because you can game the system, and nobody can tell me that when you see a quad one record of 10-8, and then you see a quad one record of 2-6 or something like that. Nobody can tell me that doesn't matter, even though those quads have been completely manipulated by math. That the ACC invited Joe Lunardi to ACC spring meetings, to me, strikes as one of the dumbest things that I have ever heard. They should have invited Boston University to join the league. That would not have been as dumb as inviting Joe Lunardi.
Look, I understand why you are focusing on the tree, but let's remember the forest that we talked about last week, and that is the relationship between ACC and its media rights holder, and how we want we want to play. Let's come on down. Let's have some conversations. So it is an olive branch in a complex discussion that at the core of it is the ACC saying, "Why are you talking bad about us?" And also figures any media member. I'll speak for myself. The way that you talk and the way that you think about I'll say this: the way that I talk and think about a football program is often altered after face-to-face conversations with the coach of that program, and not always for the better. But at least I understand more context. I've got more nuance. And while Joe Lunardi's job should just be to be dealing with the bracket, because he is asked to give so much more analysis beyond his job title, because he's asked to editorialize some things, then it is going to benefit the ACC to be able to make him look Steve Forbes in the eye, right? Because Steve Forbes, face to face, he is the alpha.
Steve's the best, man.
I do too. I'm just saying that there is no human being, not no human being, but you understand what I'm saying. No media member is going to sit down with Steve Forbes or stand there and look him eye to eye and not be the alpha. That is Steve Forbes. He is the alpha in that conversation. And so, yeah, you get him down there and you do a little, so I heard you've been talking about us conversation, and you extend an olive branch to your media rights holder to say that you're not going to be a villain come March Madness.
Okay, but I would have also invited Gary Parrish. I love Gary. I mean,
I do too. He is an expert on extortion. He is a bracketologist, and he is also a doctor who can be able to figure out. And shout out to the Island College Basketball Podcast. Those are all nuggets there. I know that you're a listener, Adam.
I am, and I love. But we had Gary on, and Gary was all about quads, and I'm like, wait a second. This is just math, and the math can be manipulated if you figure out the formula. We left the RPI a long time ago because the Missouri Valley Conference gamed the system.
Right.
We know that all of these formulas can be figured out and gamed. So why? And everybody knew it.
Games. Use whatever sorting tool you want. Use whatever ranking tool. The tournament, you just got to go and win it. Like whether you're a 4 seed or a 6 seed does change based on historical perspectives, or whether you're an 8 seed or a 3 seed, and there's bracket draw and there's all those different angles. I understand, but it is just a sorting tool, and we have to have some sort of sorting tool if we're going to seed a tournament. And so, it can be gamed, but that doesn't mean that you're going to have success. The Big Ten has great net rankings. It does not have the same NCAA tournament success. So
we don't need a sorting tool. We don't need that
to seed it. I think
we don't. We just because we don't always seed by it anyway. We have teams that are what was BYU? BYU was like 12th or something in the final the net rating. They weren't seeded third. We're sort of using it. We're not really using it. And there are teams that get into the top 30 all year, every year, that don't make the field. So we're not really using it. We're sort of using it. They're trying to make it seem easier. Nobody says it's supposed to be easy. There's 360 teams playing college basketball. We can eliminate more than half of them, obviously. But ultimately, they just have to watch more basketball. And I would be a fan getting rid of all the metrics, all of them. Get rid of the RPI, power rankings. You guys have your top 25 and 1. That was Gary's top 25 and 1. Right. You rank, when you're in football, you rank all the teams. But let the smart people, the people that watch all the games, as many as possible, let those people put the 64 best team, 68 best teams, or the 37 best at-large teams. Let them put the best at-large teams in without these silly ways of gaming the system. And I bet you we have a better representation.
But we do all this hand-wringing, and yet when the bracket is announced on Selection Sunday, most of the time we are limited to a handful of gripes, and a few of them are major. And
most of those teams, most of the gripes don't belong anyway, is what I'm right.
Or it's a seeding gripe. The seeding, the one that always comes to mind is Loyola being an 8 seed, even though every predictive metric in Las Vegas was telling you they were one of the 12 best teams in the country. Illinois, coming off of the Big Ten, is a 1 seed. Now all of a sudden they've got to face one of the 10 best teams in the country in the second round. They got beat. Right. That was a 1 seed going out too early, in part because of a seeding discrepancy.
Wichita State, Kentucky from 20 whatever year that was.
Yeah, because Kentucky's down as an 8 and Wichita is up at a 1. And I don't remember what the gambling line was, but I bet you Kentucky was favored in that second round matchup. So if all the smartest people who watch all of the games are going to end up producing a bracket at the end of the day that is somewhat similar to the one that we've gotten with the current process, I don't think it's a broken process.
My larger point, and I definitely take your point about it is your media partner, but Joe Lunardi, believe it or not, I don't think is the most influential voice at ESPN. I mean, he is the 118th best bracketologist over the last 5 years combined, of about 180 people that do this on a regular basis. He's the 118th best. I mean, I would have invited somebody else at ESPN who's got more of a. I would have invited Jay Billis to speak.
Well, hey, that's not the. If you want to find the funny out of Amelia Island, it's got to be the Clemson Tigers head football coach.
Well, we're gonna get to this. What?
Great
segue.
I really don't think you could be any more yourself. I don't know if I'm going to be able to be any more myself than Dabo Swinney was talking about his football.
Did you know we were going to do that next? All right, here we go. Here's Dabo Swinney talking about the fact that his current roster includes 0 transfer players out of the portal to this team from this particular season.
Well, it wasn't really necessarily like a intentional thing. There's a couple guys we looked at, but they got to love you too.
But it also tells us you like where you're at. And you like.
Yeah, that's what people. That's the other part of it. And honestly, every player is technically a transfer. We just signed a whole class of guys transferring from high school. So we like our guys. We like our starters. We look at every position and we say, okay, you've got.
All right, that's good. We don't need more of that. I mean,
so good.
Dabo, who's been criticized for the last however many years for not using the portal.
Wrong. He is not wrong. And
right,
like to totally play into the way that he would describe it, he would say, "Go look at Jeff Brom right now. Yeah, go look at Jeff Brom. We've somebody who CBS Sports has as a top 20 coach in college football right now. You think Jeff Brom's recruiting out of high school like the Clemson Tigers are? No, sir.
No,
that's why they've got to bring in 30 transfers every single time. They're not recruiting like we are here at Clemson. They're not going to get the OKGs, the our kind of guys. People that buy into this culture." And part of that culture is understanding that you're on a journey. You're on a journey.
A mission.
He is not wrong. And that's the thing that Clemson can always fall back on is they've been recruiting out of high school better than anybody else. So if their evaluation process was good, then they should be fine. And the issue is that all the competition for the real spots in college football that Clemson would like to get back to, they're doing both.
Yeah.
They're recruiting out of high school at a high level, like Clemson is, while also supplementing the roster every single year with transfer portal additions.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually do believe that Clemson could continue to not really do with the transfer portal as they have done for the last, basically since it opened. They could continue with that sort of approach as long as they're still recruiting out of high school at that level, and they can win ACC championships. They can.
Right.
Like they can win
ACC championships.
Yeah. And it is whether or not they are going to want to try to keep up in the arms race, because the arms race of roster construction, it's a very nerdy term. Mm-hmm. I understand, but I hope it makes sense. The arms race of roster construction is to understand how to split up all your resources between both high school and also the transfer portal. It is business decisions, and you need to have the smart people in place to lead that charge.
You said it perfectly. They can win the ACC.
They can win the ACC just doing the Dabo plan.
But if they're not nationally good, then he's left himself open for, not only criticism but ridicule.
Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, and Texas are doing both at a very, very high level.
Yeah, you have to.
Oregon is just going out here and grabbing extra defensive linemen out of the portal just because they're available, and so USC doesn't get one.
Here's the thing that puzzles me is that, and this goes back several years, and obviously I don't think they've been great at quarterback for a while. They haven't been great at quarterback. This is gonna sound weird. I don't think they've been great at quarterback since Trevor Lawrence's junior year. So I include Trevor Lawrence's junior year there. I don't think he was great. He was
2020,
whatever year that, I don't remember what year it was, but
because he wasn't throwing because he went to Cornell Powell and Amari Rodgers, and Amari Rodgers is an NFL wide receiver. I don't want to throw too much on him, but the change from 20, go all the way back to Sammy Watkins and Nuke Hopkins in 2011.
Yep.
From 2011 to 2019, you were dealing with a run of freak future pros like Sammy Watkins, Nuke Hopkins, Mike Williams, T. Higgins. Stupid. Justin Ross before he got hurt was also phenomenal.
Right. So
Deion Payne was very effective as well.
If they had just had better receivers in the last 4 seasons, legit receivers that Duke didn't have to worry. Duke did not have to worry about a Clemson wide receiver in that game. There was nobody on the outside that put any fear into the Blue Devils. And I don't mean to disparage Duke.
That was also a Duke team that got to the portal to be able to bolster that secondary.
Right. Duke used the portal.
Former Miami and Texas A&M defensive backs out on the field. Guess what? Former Miami and Texas A&M players, they were recruits that were more highly recruited than Clemson's wide receivers. They stepped up on the outside. They're like, no, I got this guy. Don't worry about it, coach. Right. You blitz from the other side. I got this covered.
Give me, because I do want to talk golf here with you for a second. So give me 30 seconds on Doug Gottlieb to Wisconsin Green Bay as the basketball coach, knowing that, at least based on what I've read, he's going to continue to do his Fox Sports radio gig. I don't even get that.
Yeah, I'm not saying this as a like disrespectful turn to either you or Doug, but like I saw the headline and I just committed zero brain power to it.
Okay.
Like it was, you got PGA Championship going on. We got our coach rankings. We got ACC meetings. Like I saw that and I did one of those. It was like, you and I have to do the same thing. Just constant stream of news.
Yes.
And sometimes you got to like look at something, note it, remember it, but just no analysis provided to it. Off the top of my head, I will say that I hope for the sake of the players on that team that the experience does not become more about the show around it, and that Doug, who I do think knows basketball,
absolutely
is able to apply that knowledge in a way that helps out the program.
I have
don't
no
want
problem.
it to become a reality show. I don't want it to become a launching point for his podcast. I don't want to get beefs started or anything like that. I think Doug Gottlieb knows basketball, and I think that I would hope for the young men on that team that they're going to be able to take advantage of that knowledge.
I know he's coached some Maccabee games teams in the past, and I think he coaches an AAU team. If he's not doing the radio show, if he's not doing a podcast, I think he should. I have no problem with him being the coach at Wisconsin. I just don't know how you do. I just don't know how you do both. I don't know how you do a radio show, and I think the Daily Show is still going to go on. I just don't get it. I don't see how Wisconsin Green Bay thinks that's a good idea. All right, I'm going to I will start this conversation about the PGA Championship here. I am back. I am in. I am willing to risk my emotions. I am Team Rory this week. What I saw last week wasn't perfect, but what I saw last week is repeatable for him. Maybe not all the putting. He made like 3 30-footers on Sunday. But I think the putting is enough. Just a slight reversion to the mean is enough because I think the other stuff is getting better. So I'm in. I'm back. He's my guy.
I am so conflicted on this, and I'll tell you why. Number one, I, like you, have been rooting for one of the great golf talents of a generation to put it all together in the biggest championships of the year. I would like to see that. I enjoy greatness. I enjoy great players being able to win against other great players. And him falling short or some of these backdoor top 5s, top 10s have been a little disappointing. I have been rooting for the breakthrough prior to what I'm about to say. Number two, do you remember what happened after the engagement with Caroline Wozniacki was called off?
Yes, I do. He won.
Including at Valhalla for the PGA Championship.
He won the PGA. I know he
won about 6 or 7 times in the 8 months that followed breaking up the engagement with Caroline Wozniacki.
Mm-hmm. Rory filed for divorce.
Okay, and then here's the final part. This is why I say I'm conflicted, because obviously been rooting for him beforehand. I've got this evidence that suggests that he's about to go on a tear.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I've always thought this. Excuse me, I've not always. For the last couple years, after it was pointed out to me, the Masters weighs so heavily on him emotionally. You look at every Rory season as pre-Masters, post-Masters, and after the Masters is done, he plays more freely. You throw in other stuff, he might be playing more freely. But, and then a colleague offered that this morning. He said, it might be kind of sad if Rory wins. And that's when I was like, oh.
Well, you think then he'll get married and break up with his wife before every major?
I'm just
kidding, obviously.
The idea that the entire golf world would be just like basing all of their huge Rory McIlroy thoughts on his reported divorce, right? I mean, that would be sad.
I agree.
Ultimately, I think Rory's going to win. I think it will only.
Oh, so you're with me?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! See, okay, now we can commiserate if it doesn't happen. He's going to break my heart again. But man, what I saw last week was
it's not going to be anyone from outside of like it's a Scotty, a Rory, a Brooks, a Bryson. I don't see any strange, even with weather. I don't see any strange name at the top.
I got a name. Well, it's not a strange name. Max Homa is going to win a major this year. Max Homa is going to win a major this year. I think there's only one winner at Pinehurst. I think that's going to be Scotty. Unless Scotty is not hitting his approach shots flag high, Scotty's the only winner I see at Pinehurst.
I could see Rahm winning at Pinehurst.
Yeah, he's got to be hitting it flag high.
We'll see.
Those greens are minuscule based on where your landing areas are.
I know. It whooped my tail.
Yeah,
I got taunted by the four caddy. Like,
wait, when did I just played there last week for media day? I did birdie 18. I did birdie 18. Well, yeah, got an a big roar from the veranda. Everybody out there having drinks and eating lunch. But otherwise I was terrible. So it not even worth talking about.
Yeah, the four caddy, I was in one of several holes where I was chipping from one side and roll off to the other, chipping from one side, roll off to the other. On the second chip back, four caddy's like, well, you're off, but you're a little closer than you were last time.
That is fantastic. All right, all right. Give me. So you're basically saying it's a chalk major. Is there a Bob May out here?
Well, that's that's where it's like we can look at the winners, but not always the runner-ups or the other ones in contention or were a name like that.